Hi, it's Seavey and Perry on Culture, Todd Seavey and Gerard Perry. And in other exciting broadcasting news, this April 2014 is the 20th anniversary of Space Ghost Coast to Coast. I can't believe that surreal show started that long ago. When I think about the fact that, unlike me, who's known Space Ghost Coast to Coast for half his life, there are people out there who've known it since childhood. I'm amazed they're not all schizophrenic. Oh, well, a great show, and I'm glad it was around. I remember once in I think it was a Barnes & Noble store, stumbling across a DVD of Space Ghost episodes, and they had rather courageously covered the back with quotes from critics about the show, but they weren't positive quotes. They were all negative. And they were about that, I guess it was second season or whatever it was at the time. And interestingly, they weren't even like exciting, inflammatory negative quotes like, don't watch this, it'll poison your mind. They were just really bland, tepid, negative comments like a serious disappointment compared to the first season. But it takes courage to put negative quotes like that on your material just for the sake of comedy. Hail, Space Ghost. In other cartoony and comic booky news, by the way, I noticed a report that the 200th issue of the comic book Ultimate Spider-Man had a letter in it from Talib Abu Rashid of Harlem, basically just praising Spider-Man, a perfectly well-written letter. But I can't help wondering if this is the same Talib Abu Rashid who's an imam, a Muslim in Harlem. If it's the same guy, maybe we should be nervous about the fact that in the letter he refers accidentally, presumably, to the original Spider-Man artist Steve Ditko as the late Steve Ditko. I assume he didn't realize that Steve Ditko is 86 but still alive. But what if Spider-Man comics have become the new subversive method for radical Muslims to get out their messages of fatwa and jihad? I'm just kidding. If you're watching this, Talib, I assume you're just a Spider-Man fan. And I apologize to everyone who was offended by that. And it might not even be the same guy.
It's possible. I don't know. That doesn't sound like an implied threat, though. It just sounds like he had no idea.
Yeah, he just didn't know Steve Ditko's still hanging in there.
Around and kicking.
Although, the Muslims might not like Steve Ditko because he's an objectivist. He's an atheist and a libertarian like Ayn Rand, but probably just a typo in a Spider-Man letter. Although you'd think the Marvel editors would have caught that. I don't blame the letter writer, really, but if you're a Marvel editor and you see a reference to the late Steve Ditko, you probably ought to know that's inaccurate. Oh, well.
Yeah, I guess this comes down to the dire financial straits of the comic book industry, the fact that they can't hire good copy editors.
That may be.
I'm just reading too much into this.
Do you think there's any? Is there any broader fondness for Islam amongst Marvel editors?
It is kind of interesting the way that it has come into vogue, portraying Islam. I think there's an Islamic superheroine. I'm not sure. I think
Ms. Marvel.
Ms. Marvel. Does she have a hijab, or she?
Yeah. Well, they sort of came up with like a way to give her a partial hijab, so it still looks sort of hip, but her head's basically covered. And this is not the first heroine to use the name Ms. Marvel, but the new Ms. Marvel, is a teenage girl living in New Jersey in a community with a lot of Muslims, and she's a fairly moderate Muslim, but is Muslim. And it's written, by the way, I think this might be important, the comic book is actually written by a fairly young white chick convert to Islam who converted right after 9/11 while she was at a fairly prestigious university, as I recall. So, I mean, the comic...
Was she part of the Taqwa Corps?
I don't know.
Vanguard? Or is this individual decision on her part? I don't know. I guess you could look at it that way. After September 11th attacks, there has been, not just since then, I guess since the Salman Rushdie fatwa, there has been a reluctance to level any sort of critique of Islam writ large within the journalism, the mainstream media, Hollywood, just pop culture in general. And I guess there's an element of, I don't know if Bosch Faustine, the pseudonymous writer and artist whose superhero Pigman is virulently anti-Islam, whether he has a point that captive to the interests of the caliphate. But I think there is generally a reluctance to issue any sort of critique of that religion as opposed to Christianity or Judaism or any other generally accepted religion, which is open to criticism and satire and parody.
By the way, we wouldn't want to single out, one religion to bash, but supposedly Muslims aren't supposed to drink alcohol, which is kind of sad. Whereas we are at the Lock Yard, a wonderful bar in Brooklyn that you should all check out. But one time when I was in Manhattan, I actually bumped into Salman Rushdie walking around on the street, and it was sort of a funny, revealing moment in that. I went up and said hello to him and said I had read a couple of books of his I liked. And then I thought, if he's got this fatwa against him, should I not tell people that I saw him? Like, I didn't even know he was living in New York at the time. So I thought, if I tell people, I might get him killed or something. So I actually said, should I, wait a few blocks before I mentioned anybody that I saw you, or should I not say it at all? And he just went, no, that's fine. I don't care. So apparently he wasn't really living in constant fear for his life.
Well, not
that I'm excusing the fatwa.
Initially, he was, though. I don't know if you've read it, but he has this, and I'm not a huge fan of Salman Rushdie's fiction, but he wrote a memoir which is really captivating called Joseph Anton. Of course, that was the pseudonym that he, the name, the alias that he used when they were spiriting him around the United Kingdom, hiding him from his family and anyone else, especially the people who were hired to assassinate him. Of course, it comes from the two writers, Joseph Conrad, the Polish-English novelist, and Anton Chekhov, the Russian playwright. And if you read the book, it was really a horrifying period for him, because he came to doubt almost every single decision he made for the first, I'd say, 3 to 4 or 5 years. And of course he was kind of estranged from his vocation because he couldn't write. He could barely think about anything aside from the fact that there were people out there who wanted to put him 6 feet under.
And it actually produced an interesting internal debate in Islam, because the Iranian government called off the fatwa, but then there was a debate about whether they had the authority to do that. And then there were some people, imams and the like, within the religion who said they agreed the fatwa should be called off, but then there was another debate about whether a fatwa can ever be called off except by the person who originally declared it.
Well, Iran has a sort of strange...
Who had since died.
Yeah. Iran has a strange interpretation of authority. They have this thing called Velayat-e Fiqh. I might be mispronouncing it, but basically it's the jurist, the chain of jurors. Basically, there's a hierarchy which you don't find in any other Islamic country, and the head of it is the Ayatollah, which right now is Ayatollah Khamenei, but used to be Ayatollah Khomeini. He was the one who issued the fatwa, ostensibly because Salman Rushdie was an apostate, but more logically, it actually was because Iran was mired in a protracted war with Iraq, and it was done to kind of tamp down internal unrest.
On a more optimistic note, I still remember the first time I began to suspect that Salman Rushdie was managing to go on with his life, which was when he was brought out on stage to say hello at a U2 concert. And I thought, okay, well, so he's not completely in hiding. I mean, I haven't been on stage at a U2 concert. So if he is, he's probably not the most hidden, secluded person in the world. Not that I mean to make...
And he had that cameo in Bridget Jones, the first Bridget Jones
film.
Right.
Not that I mean to make light of his predicament, and I hope he'll be okay and not get attacked. And we will go back into hiding now, at least for a little while. This has been Seavey and Perry on Culture, but we'll see you again soon. Oh, and you can find us in the meantime at toddseavey.com
and AmericanRattlesnake.org.